Roll Tide, written by Possible Letters 42. There were many wildly varying theories, stories, tales, and fables regarding the series of events that might unfold when humanity encountered, in whatever form, extraterrestrial life. A bloody and intractable war of conquest, with humanity either utterly dominant or utterly defeated. Brutal slavery or simple misunderstanding. Translation concerns, turning greetings into vile insults. Would they find us unbearably sexy? Not sexy, even in a little bit. Would we be considered ordinary or strange? Upon what fulcrum would the future of humanity among the stars pivot? The answer was surprising, but maybe it shouldn't have been. It was sitting right in front of us while we waited to order. The initial diplomatic overtures were made by the Yabrina brood, a mid-sized, mid-power, carapace-armored amphibian species that had made its place on the galactic stage by specializing in first contact with new species. The Yabrina conducted this process through a highly ritualized series of gatherings that humans rather insultingly, though the Yabrina begrudgingly agreed accurately, termed dinner parties. The tradition went as follows. First, the Yabrina hosted a dinner party aboard the Stellar Accord, their legendary millennia-old flagship, at which they shared a wide variety of Yabrina fare, a food popular galaxy-wide and generally favored amongst galactic denizens. Humans took to calling Yabrina food Space Italian, not because of similarity in flavor, but because you could find it almost anywhere, and it was almost always pretty good. The first ritual went off without a hitch. The human ambassador displayed good-natured curiosity and honest feedback about the dozens of dishes. Particularly popular with humans was the Erzat Puff, a dessert of complex sugars that dissolved immediately, yet left a delicious, subtle, creamy sensation on the palate, as though the dinner eaten a much heartier and more fitting dessert. One human aide enthusiastically said it was like a rice cake that makes you think you ate a tiramisu. Also appreciated by the humans was the delicately prepared and seasoned leg of thont, which one human ambassador enthusiastically described as a chicken leg from a frigging ostrich. Later references to human databank found this to be surprisingly accurate, though, out of politeness, the Yabrina ambassador did not mention that for thont, placing the head in the sand was a mating display, and thus many of the human cartoons and popular images of ostriches were considered fully pornographic by alien species. Second, the Yabrina would then host an all-Confederation dinner party on the all-species megastation Counterpoint Circular, which one awed human pilot said made the citadel of Massive Feck look like a phone booth. At Centerpoint, the major and minor species of the Confederation Congress would each present the finest main course, side dish, and dessert for their species. The second ritual was always a good bit more chaotic, and was less about the dining and more about seeing how the new species handled the discomfort caused by foods that were unpleasant or incompatible. A new species would invariably encounter foods they could not or did not want to try, and it was a gentle way to determine how a new species dealt with offense, disgust, and adversity. The Rirembe dish called Blair Dock, described as like tater tots dusted with crack, apparently induced rather violent gestational upset in humans after about 20 minutes. Disturbingly, this did not dissuade the humans whatsoever. One particularly determined attaché went back for thirds and was heard muttering in the lavatory that this job might kill me, but damn, I do love it. Glendexter light grubs, which only produced a feeling of euphoria in most species, caused humans to fully impersonate the grubs for nearly 20 minutes, writhing around on the ground and attempting mating by rubbing their feet together. After the initial embarrassment subsided, the human delegation set about giddily uploading videos to the extranet of other humans in the grips of this madness. Of note in the Congressional Archive, humans were only the second species in recorded history to try all dishes, despite 11 hospitalizations and 2 near deaths only prevented by Centerpoint's cutting-edge medical care. The first species had been the Yabrina themselves, at their first contact with the second and third congressional species. Finally, for the third ritual, a new species themselves would host a dinner party on their home world, welcome to all ambassadors compatible with the biosphere. The humans chose to host their ritual in Cortona, Italy, a small Italian village once rumored to be the favorite and celebrated ancient human gourmand and intellectual named Conan Shlelansky. Some humans dispute the accuracy of the record, but the village was lovely indeed and reminded one of the small settlements in the Glentani's ancestral homelands. The first few human dishes were enjoyable but unremarkable. Hummus was enjoyed by most delegates, as bean-derived foods were a common galactic staple. While packages of foods were rare at these events, one American delegate brought Oreos, which led to a planet-wide buyout lasting a year before suppliers could catch up, as the log yak found the crunchy sandwich cookies nearly orgasmic. And then came the bread. The trouble started in the olfactory glands of the species present. All ambassadors lost interest in whatever dishes they had been enjoying. At first, the human chief ambassador became concerned about some breach of protocol. "Everything okay?" "Chief Ambassador Breda, what is that smell?" "Ah, fresh garlic bread, yes, sir. That's on its way out. Why? It smells nice, right?" The gathered ambassadors were unable to respond, and gathered in transfixed disbelief as 3 fresh loaves of buttery, cheesy garlic bread were laid upon the serving table. How galactic societies had invented thousands of foods and never invented something as simple as bread is one of the galactic history's most curious footnotes. At the time, a massive array of galactic leading gourmands found themselves in an unimaginable situation, completely disarmed by an utterly unfamiliar food. The garlic bread fell in a rapid, undignified snarfing that was nearly violent. The high overarch of the Hydra, a 2,000-year-old being who had once brokered the end of war that cost nearly 1 trillion lives, threw elbows into 2 necks securing a key portion. When they understood the power of this new baked good, humanity rose to the occasion, spreading word to their heavily staffed kitchens. The globally sourced cooking staff got the memo and went into overdrive. It was not simply a decadent delight of cheesy garlic bread that ruled the day. Species from across the universe celebrated the dense joy of pita, a crisp break of a good baguette, the intricate buttered delight of challah, and hidden delights within stuffed pastries, donuts, and croissants. Pockets across the ritual bulged with the dense, delightful, pocketable dinner roll, which has become a central staple to boost the morale of frontline congressional soldiers. In the years since the reddening, what this first exposure has come to be known, bread has taken the universe by storm. Despite its simplicity, none, even the omni-minds of Sentia 3, can properly bake it the way the humans can. A perplexing way they call with love that defies measurement or prediction. Human bakers have become a single most high-demand experts universe-wide, easily outstripping the wealth of magnets at the head of thousands of systems. A single box of blueberry muffins has prevented a war. An apple pie with a lattice crust has sealed the royal union. They came upon the universe not with waves of soldiers, not with cresting cannonades of missiles and shot, not with an ocean of blood. Theirs was a roll tide. End of Story 1. Story number 2, Disguising Oneself in Soul, written by its director. Retrieved by Russian Federation's FSB on 2/17/2013 from an extraterrestrial impact with Earth, intercepted by the CIA on 2/18/2013, confirmed to be Language 3 by NSA analysts on 2/19/2013, translated on 2/21/2013. Disguising Oneself and Soul, an opinion piece by Alexaria 2 for the Big Green Gazette. Solar System WX455, known as Soul by the locals, has a decently large variety of potential activities that one can partake in for one's leisure time. No one will ever claim that it is the most diverse solar system in the galaxy, but it has enough attractive qualities to get its fair share of tourists, regardless. For a full rundown of all that is available in SSWX455, I urge my readers to consult the Galactic Tourism Board. But there are some examples of the many activities one can partake in. Planet 1, Mercury, would be a fatal jaunt for most of us, but a member of the extremophile species, like the Throlfers, would find its high temperatures and radiations to be quite relaxing. There is even potassium in the air, which happens to be mildly psychoactive for them. When one takes into account the various rock climbing and hiking opportunities, it is easy to see why so many choose Planet 1 as their vacation destination. Planet 2, Venus, would be another example of an extremophile's paradise, with a much denser atmosphere than Planet 1, a very rough volcanic terrain, and a wide variety of acid baths. It happens to be a fairly popular tourist destination for those who wish to test themselves against the might of nature on a non-terraformed planetscape. Certainly not my cup of yip-yok, but to each their own. Planet 4, Mars, is somewhat boring compared to the other two that I've mentioned thus far, but it has its own charms. Low-atmo hiking and climbing enthusiasts will absolutely love spending their time on this brownish-red surface. There are even some archaeological opportunities. It is worth noting, however, that Planet 4 will likely soon be considered a protectorate planet under the Veil Initiative, so one should rush to visit as soon as one can. There are 4 terrestrial planets in SSWX 455, but you'll note that thus far I've only listed 3. This is because Planet 3 Earth is vastly different to its neighbors. For one thing, it's a Veil Initiative protectorate planet, which means that one has to take certain precautions before visiting. For another, it's absolutely teeming with monocellular and, more importantly, multicellular life. Like many of our worlds, Planet 3 has a vibrant biosphere. It is mostly carbon-based and has been the subject of an extensive natural evolution cycle. Part of this evolution cycle is a predator-prey relationship between most of its various species, which actually brings us to the reason that Planet 3 is a VIPP. The most dominant predator on Planet 3 is species X225-4778-9662T, otherwise known by their chosen names human, sick, Homo sapiens sapien, sick. You read that correctly, dear reader. They have chosen their own names for themselves. They are intelligent enough to have named themselves, but still too young as a species to have ventured too far into space to be welcomed into the galactic community. Under the Veil Initiative, humanity is granted several protections, at least of which is the right to develop at their own pace. There are many critiques in the Veil Initiative, but I would argue for its importance until my face turns yellow. Uplifting a sentient species has many, many potential risk factors and is rarely beneficial to anyone involved. It also prevents new takes on the technology required to travel between solar systems in a single lifetime. Imagine, dear reader, if our galactic union had uplifted the Morian, we would still be punching holes in the space-time continuum, like children. My views on the Veil Initiative aside, galactic law states quite clearly that any visitor on Planet 3 is required to utilize stealthcraft and specific disguise techniques. Humans are civilized, for the most part, and the majority of their governments are aware of or even communicate with the galactic community via primitive radio waves and light beam technology. However, the populace at large is not, and you should do your part to let them grow on their own. This leads us to disguise techniques in question. To properly enjoy the many, many leisure activities on Planet 3 has to offer, one must ensure one's disguise is perfect. One needs to understand the culture that one is disguised as, the vagaries of body language, and all the subtle details that must be included in one's physical appearance. As you may have guessed, this is far easier said than done. It is all too effortless to forget how many teeth humans are supposed to have, or how high on a forehead eyebrows happen to grow, or even how long one's appendages should be. Unfortunately, the odds happen to be stacked against us as well. The methodology in which humanity classifies species is inarguably and needlessly confusing by our standards. To paraphrase their findings, however, they evolved alongside other, almost humans, For example, Homo sapiens neanderthalensis, which is a species that went extinct before species X225-4778-9662T was classified by the Galactic Standards Bureau. If I understand my studies correctly, all species on humanity were predatory and would frequently attack one another for resources and territory. One of the many, many reasons that Homo sapiens outlived all of their sister species is because of an evolutionary trait known as pattern recognition. Most star-faring species possess this at some level, but humanity is actually quite adept in recognizing patterns. A quirk of this phenomenon known as the uncanny valley effect, which is defined as a feeling of unease or revulsion when confronted with something that is similar to but not quite the same as a human. Many scientists, myself included, believe that these feelings of unease towards things that appear to almost but not quite like themselves help them identify and avoid their more hostile sister species before they could be attacked and killed. Unfortunately, this allows them to easily pick up on incongruencies in one's disguise. Thankfully for us, most humans also possess a semblance of social grace and will, more often than not, simply avoid contact with someone they believe to be uncanny. The Galactic Tourism Board has plenty of documentation outlining areas on Planet 3 where this is more often than not the case. With enough caution and preparation, one can have oneself an amazing vacation in Sol and on Planet 3. End of story. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholt, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.